You are tired. Maybe you don't even know exactly why, but you feel it. You feel like you are always carrying an invisible weight, as if it were your obligation to keep everything in balance. Please everyone. Avoid conflicts. Always be kind, understanding, polite. You learned early on that being a good person was the right thing to do, that the good win in the end, that if you are kind, others will reciprocate, that it's enough to be fair, honest, humble, and the world will recognize that. But what if I told you that all of this is a lie, a comfortable lie taught to keep you well-behaved, predictable, controllable? How often have you kept quiet just to maintain the peace? How often have you made yourself small just so no one would feel let down? How often have you allowed someone to disrespect you, to take you for granted, and still you smiled and said, "It's fine," held back your tears, your pride, your anger, all for the sake of a so-called virtue that only led to you being overlooked? Listen carefully. The world does not reward the nice guys. The world rewards the strategic ones. If you are here, it's because you have already felt this in your skin. You have been frustrated trying to be the nice guy, the good person, the understanding friend. And now you are starting to realize that the more you try to be accepted, the less you are respected. The more you give in, the more they demand. The more you give, the less you are valued. And that's exactly where Machiavelli enters. Machiavelli wasn't the devil people often claim he was. He may have been the first to speak the raw truth about the nature of power. He grasped something that most still choose to deny, that morality, when stripped from reality, becomes a snare, that appearing good isn't the same as being just, capable, or truly deserving. In this video, we are going to talk without filters, without masks, about why you need to stop trying to be a good person. And no, that doesn't mean becoming someone cruel or cold. It means waking up. Awakening from the childish dream that the world is fair and that it's enough to be virtuous to be rewarded. We will expose the truth, no matter how uncomfortable it may be. As long as you are trying to please everyone, you will be in their hands, a hostage of your own kindness. And if you are already tired of being used, ignored, discarded, maybe it's time to change, to learn from Machiavelli what they never taught you and finally take control of your life. Ready then? Let's get started. Do you still believe that the world values good people? Look around you. Who are the most admired? Who holds leadership positions? Who earns respect, influence, space? Are they the most generous, the most compassionate, the most just? Or are they the most strategic, the most assertive, the hardest to manipulate? The truth is brutal. The world is not governed by kindness, but by utility. Machiavelli understood this centuries ago. He didn't write The Prince to teach how to be malicious. He wrote to show how the game's played, and one of the bitterest lessons he gives us is this: being good is not enough. In many cases, being good is the quickest way to be discarded. You can live your life being kind, loyal, and endlessly understanding. You can offer your best, support others without ever asking for anything back. But the moment you stop being useful, you'll be replaced, forgotten, dismissed, and the most painful part, it'll happen without even a flicker of guilt from the other side, because the world doesn't weigh your worth by your goodness. It measures it by what you bring to the table, the impact you leave, the power you carry. Have you ever noticed how the nice guys are always the ones chasing, always explaining, justifying, trying to show they're worthy? Meanwhile, it's the ones who set limits, who say no, who show up with clarity. Those are the ones who get respect. They're heard. They're given space. And why is that? Because unchecked kindness gets mistaken for weakness. Because those who never push back, who never pose a challenge, aren't seen as a threat. And if you're not a threat, you're not taken seriously. You're seen as a function, not a force, as something to use, not someone to face. You can kill yourself trying to please, but if you do not represent power or consequence, no one will hesitate to use you. It's harsh, I know, but it's the reality. Machiavelli said that a leader should not seek to be loved but to be feared, if forced to choose between the two. And what did he mean by that? That true respect arises from the perception that you are someone with the power to act, that you cannot be trampled without reaction, that you're not a replaceable piece in someone else's game. And this includes you. If you keep living just to be agreeable, you'll keep being seen as someone easy to dismiss. Not because you're unworthy, but because the world doesn't honor those who disappear quietly. It's time to look at where this constant, unhealthy need for approval really comes from. Because behind that kindness, there's something deeper, something that may have been holding you back for years. And that's exactly what we're going to dive into. Now, in the next part, we will dive into the psychological roots of those who live trying to please and discover why. Often being nice is just a disguised form of fear. If you find this content valuable, click the subscribe button and subscribe to the channel. Your support is greatly appreciated. You weren't born wanting to please everyone. That was taught to you. And worse, it was conditioned. Since childhood, you learned that being accepted came at a price, giving up parts of yourself, forced smiles, swallowed desires, silenced opinions, all in the name of approval. From "don't do that, it's ugly," to "be nice," to "don't respond." You're so polite, and so little by little, you molded yourself to fit what others expected. But what no one ever told you is that constant people-pleasing is an emotional trap, a psychological cage built from flattering poison and punishments dressed up as lessons. You were taught that if you kept others happy, you'd be loved, and that if you ever got angry, drew a line, or put yourself first, you'd be pushed away. So you did what any mind conditioned to survive would do. You adjusted. The issue is that this adaptation slowly became submission. Now, you don't even know how to say no without being consumed by guilt. You carry the weight of others' well-being, even when it tears you apart inside. You feel frustration, but keep it buried. You feel let down, but forgive far too easily. You drain yourself trying to uphold an image others expect, not because it reflects who you truly are, but because it's what you learned would keep you safe. But here's a reality check. This is not kindness. This is fear. Fear of being rejected, fear of not being loved, fear of being seen as a bad person, fear of being who you really are, with desires, with anger, with boundaries, with a voice. And this fear has turned you into someone who sabotages themselves, someone who hides behind socially accepted but emotionally destructive behavior. And the most heartbreaking part, you don't even see that you're doing it. You call it empathy, but it's really fear of conflict. You call it understanding, but it's fear of being left. You call it kindness, but underneath it's fear of not being enough. That kindness is actually a mask, an unconscious defense to shield you from the sting of rejection. But the price of that mask is steep. It chokes your authenticity, your strength, your self-respect. And if you don't remove it, it'll fuse with your skin. It'll become who you think you are. And one day, you'll face the mirror and no longer recognize the person looking back. But there is a way back, and to find it, we need to learn from someone who understood the power of image, perception, and strategy like no one else, Machiavelli. In the next part, we will get straight to the point, what The Prince can teach us about how to stop being a hostage to our need to appear good and start being respected for who we really are. If you're striving to live as a fundamentally good human being, hoping that others will notice and reward your decency, your integrity, and your sense of justice, pause and reconsider. Machiavelli, writing over 5 centuries ago, delivered a warning that still cuts through time. This path, though admirable, is dangerous. In the actual messy world we live in, it is rarely the virtuous who rise. It is those who are effective. And being effective doesn't always align with being kind. Effectiveness is the currency of power. Machiavelli's timeless wisdom in The Prince tells us that success in life, be it politics, leadership, or even relationships, requires more than just being good. It requires being strategic. It requires seeing through illusion, understanding people as they are, not as we wish them to be. Most people are not guided by your noble heart. They are motivated by self-interest, by fear, by the perception of power. And so, if you want to succeed, you cannot afford to be naive. Everyone sees what you appear to be, but few feel what you really are. This sentence is a blow to the romantic ideal of authenticity. It strips away the comforting delusion that being sincere, being honest, and having good intentions are enough. They're not. Most people react not to who you are internally, but to what you project outwardly. You could be a person of deep character, but if you come across as uncertain, hesitant, or weak, you will be dismissed. You may care deeply, but if you do not command respect, you will be walked over. This is why The Prince is not just about rulers of nations. The Prince is you, the one who wants to take ownership of their life, the one who wishes to lead, to make a difference, to stop being pushed around by the stronger wills of others. And, for that person, for you, naivety is not a virtue. It's a liability. Machiavelli teaches that a prince must appear virtuous when it serves him, but also know when to abandon virtue if the situation demands it. He must know how to be the animal, and not just the man. He must be a fox to see the traps, and a lion to scare the wolves. A prince must imitate the fox and the lion, for the lion cannot protect himself from traps, and the fox cannot defend himself from wolves. This is not just poetic metaphor, it is strategic reality. The fox embodies cleverness, discretion, foresight. The lion symbolizes force, authority, dominance. Alone each is vulnerable, but together they are unstoppable. This duality is at the heart of Machiavellian wisdom. You must be clever enough to detect manipulation, to read beneath the surface, to see what people are not saying. But you must also be strong enough to assert your power, to make your presence felt, and to enforce boundaries when they are crossed. It's not about cruelty, it's about clarity. Because the truth is, the world does not reward kindness unless it is paired with strength. Compassion without power is often invisible. Worse, it can be exploited. You may already know this deep down. Think back. How many times have you tried to be the good person? You were patient. You forgave. You gave the benefit of the doubt. And what did you get in return? Disrespect, betrayal, dismissal. You thought others would see your honesty, your integrity, and they did, but not with admiration. With opportunity to take advantage. A man who wishes to act entirely virtuously soon meets with what destroys him among so many who are not virtuous. You've lived this. You've played fair in an unfair game. You believed your good heart would be enough, and it wasn't. But this doesn't mean you should become cruel. That is not Machiavelli's point. His advice is not to abandon your values, but to stop allowing your values to be used as a weapon against you. To stop letting your kindness be a cage. He wasn't cynical, he was clear-eyed. He saw people for who they really are, not who we wish them to be. He understood that appearances matter more than intentions, and that power, when used wisely, is not evil. It is necessary. What is often labeled as cruelty is sometimes just difficult wisdom. Being feared is not the same as being hated. Respect does not require you to be ruthless. It requires you to be unbreakable. It is much safer to be feared than loved if one must choose. Now that line often makes people uncomfortable, but consider what he's really saying. He's not advocating tyranny. He's saying that fear, measured fear, the kind that comes from setting clear boundaries and enforcing them, is more reliable than love that depends on other people's moods and whims. Love is fleeting. Fear, when used strategically, is stable. This doesn't mean you must abandon empathy. It means you must pair empathy with control. You must lead with both heart heart and mind, not just one. There is a profound strength in restraint. There is power in being underestimated and then revealing your strength only when it counts. When you embrace this way of thinking, you stop waiting for others to treat you fairly. You stop hoping people will play by the rules you follow, and instead you learn to set the rules of engagement yourself. People often think they must choose between being a good person or being a strong person. But that's a false binary. There is a middle ground, and it starts by refusing to deceive yourself. You do not have to be the villain, but you do have to be the architect. You do not have to manipulate, but you must understand manipulation. You do not have to strike first, but you must know how to strike back. And above all, you must stop expecting the world to reward your virtue simply because you possess it. Because as Machiavelli knew, the world doesn't work that way. In the real world, power is not given, it is taken. Respect is not inherited, it is earned. And naivety, while pure, is a dangerous luxury. So what does this mean in your everyday life? It means you need to evaluate not just what you do, but how others perceive it. Are your boundaries clear? Do people know there are consequences when they cross them? Do you speak with authority, or do you seek approval in every sentence? Do you protect your peace, or do you hand it over to everyone who asks for your time? A prince is not just a ruler by title. He is a ruler in posture, in presence, in power. You must learn to lead yourself before you can lead others. And that leadership starts with shedding the illusion that goodness is enough. It's not about giving up on morality. It's about building a strategy that includes it. Remember this, your heart can be pure, but your eyes must be sharp. Your intentions can be noble, but your actions must be wise. And your kindness can remain intact, so long as it does not come at the cost of your strength. To survive, to thrive, and to lead in a world filled with illusion, power plays, and selfish motives, you cannot afford to be naive, not because Machiavelli said so, but because reality demands it. In the next part, we will break the false idea that you only have two choices, to be nice or to be cruel. There is a middle path, and it begins with the strength to stop deceiving yourself. A fatal confusion ruins the lives of many. The belief that being good means being submissive, that in order to be a good person, one must silently accept everything, forgive without question, and endure what disturbs you just to keep the peace. But this isn't kindness, it's naivety. It's cowardice wearing the mask of virtue. And if you fail to see this distinction, the world will keep using you as its emotional doormat. True kindness doesn't demand that you erase yourself. It calls for clarity, choice, and awareness. To be good doesn't mean playing the cheerful fool, always smiling, always available, always giving yourself up for those who wouldn't even move a finger for you. That is not virtue. It's self-abandonment. It's morality veiling emotional dependency. Naivety believes that people will treat you with the same heart that you have. Naivety believes that the world is fair and that if you are integral, others will recognize that. Naivety expects gratitude, reciprocity, consideration, and it lives frustrated. It lives disappointed because it is projecting onto others a nobility that does not exist. True kindness is something else. It stands firm. It knows when to say no. It knows when to walk away. It understands that not everyone is worthy of your best, and that offering your best to those who give nothing in return isn't generosity, it's waste. You can be a person of compassion, justice, and integrity, and still be someone who is respected, who is feared, who carries presence, who knows clearly what they will tolerate and what they will not accept. Machiavelli, though he may seem cruel to modern eyes, did not despise virtue. What he despised was naivety. He understood that in a world ruled by predators, kindness without strength is nothing but fresh meat in the heart of the jungle. The question you must now ask yourself is this: does your kindness protect you, or does it expose you? Does it make you stronger, or is it tearing you down? Because if your version of goodness means swallowing injustice, settling for crumbs, and blaming yourself for feeling anger, then you're not being good. You're being conquered. And there is an antidote to this. There is a balance point where you do not have to give up your essence, but you also do not have to kneel before anyone. A place where you can act with courage, clarity, and emotional intelligence. In the next part, we will explore this path. We will talk about how to stop being nice without becoming a scoundrel, and finally take control of your life without betraying yourself. If you want to regain your self-respect, this is where the transformation begins. Many people, after spending years being agreeable, submissive, and overly accommodating, eventually wake up, often in pain. They realize they've been taken advantage of, disrespected, walked on, and so, in the heat of that awakening, they make a dangerous turn. They believe the answer is to transform into the exact opposite of what they were: distant, aloof, cold. They begin to suppress their warmth, their sensitivity, their openness. They start to think that to be respected, they must be hard, that if they're ever going to stop being hurt, they must stop caring altogether. But Machiavelli would call this what it truly is: not strength, not wisdom, but yet another illusion, a reaction, not a transformation. This is the rebound effect, when someone who has spent years being nice, too nice, swings to the other extreme. And yet, despite how empowered it may feel in the moment, this shift is not real power. It is trauma dressed up as control. It is pain wearing the mask of independence. Because abandoning your essence doesn't make you powerful. It makes you lost. Machiavelli wrote not to destroy your values, but to awaken your awareness. He knew the world would not reward innocence, but he also knew that the solution wasn't to become ruthless. It was to become real. True freedom, real strength comes when you become whole, when you stop performing, when you stop being who others want you to be, when you stop adjusting your behavior so others feel comfortable at your expense. This isn't about becoming bad. This isn't about becoming indifferent. It's about becoming authentic. It's about standing in front of the mirror and saying, I will still be kind, but never again passive. I will remain compassionate, but I will no longer tolerate disrespect. I will still give, but I will no longer beg for acknowledgement. This is not weakness. This is self-possession. So how do you do it? How do you stop being too nice without betraying who you are? First, realize your voice has value. Most people who struggle with being too nice were taught, directly or indirectly, that speaking up is selfish, that setting boundaries is rude, that being assertive is mean. You were trained to believe that if you speak your truth, you'll hurt people, that you'll make them uncomfortable, that they'll leave. But silence, when forced, is not noble. It is submission. A wise man, Machiavelli wrote, must not only use the opportunities presented by fortune, but must also make them. Speaking up is how you make opportunity. Saying, I don't accept this, or this doesn't work for me, is not cruelty, it's dignity. It is not selfishness, it's self-respect. And if that threatens someone, that says more about them than it ever will about you. Second, learn the power of saying no. One of the most underestimated words in the human language is also one of the most powerful. No. You don't need to explain it. You don't need to justify it. A clear, firm, and calm no is enough. Not shouted, not defensive, just certain, because when you say no, you define your space, and when you define your space, you protect your soul. Machiavelli said, he who is the cause of another becoming powerful is ruined. You must stop empowering others at the cost of weakening yourself. And every time you say yes to something you do not want, just to avoid discomfort, you hand over your power. Every no that aligns with your truth, however, is an act of restoration. Third, pay attention to who gets uncomfortable. When you change as you begin to assert yourself, some people will resist. They'll say, you've changed. You're not as nice as you used to be. What happened to you? But notice this, the ones who say these things are the very ones who benefited from your silence, from your obedience, from your self-sacrifice. They're not mourning your character. They're mourning their control. When your submission was useful to them, of course they liked you. But growth disrupts comfort, especially the comfort of manipulators. So if someone reacts negatively to your growth, your boundaries, your strength, that's not a sign to stop. That's a sign you're on the right path. Fourth, let go of the need to be understood. Not everyone will understand your transformation, and they don't need to. People have built an image of you, a quiet, polite, endlessly agreeable version of you that made their lives easier. And now that you've changed, that image is shattered, that illusion is gone, and you're not responsible for maintaining someone else's fantasy. It is better to be feared than loved if you cannot be both. Machiavelli didn't mean to become a tyrant. He meant, do not seek approval where you should seek respect. Being loved is sweet, but being respected is sustainable. And respect begins when you stop trying to be liked by everyone. Fifth, replace the desire for acceptance with the commitment to authenticity. There's a shift that occurs when you stop living to be accepted and start living to be real. You may lose a few people, but what you gain is deeper, your own trust, your own self-worth. You begin to admire the person you've become, not just for how others treat them, but for how that person defends themselves. You start to like who you are without needing anyone else to. And here's the secret. When you live authentically, yes, you might upset a few people, but you also attract the ones who respect your truth. You'll be surrounded not by those who tolerate you, but those who honor you. And most importantly, you'll honor yourself. So understand this. Machiavelli didn't write The Prince to teach cruelty. He wrote it to teach clarity, to wake people up to the realities of power, perception, and human nature. To show that naivety in a world like this is not just risky, it's dangerous. The greatest cruelty, Machiavelli might argue today, is the cruelty we inflict upon ourselves when we betray who we are just to be liked. You don't have to become unkind. You don't have to become cold, but you must become conscious. The world does not need another fake version of you. It doesn't need a people pleaser who's quietly drowning inside. It needs you, whole, awake, and unapologetic. And that brings us to the final unavoidable choice. You've come this far. You've seen the damage of overpleasing. You've felt the pain of invisibility. And now you're standing at the crossroads between two paths. One where you continue to shrink, hoping to be loved, or one where you expand, even if it means being misunderstood. Do you want to be loved, or do you want to be free? Only one of these choices will set you free. Only one will allow you to walk through the world with your head high and your heart intact. Only one will make you powerful in the truest sense, not by dominating others, but by refusing to let anyone dominate you. Machiavelli didn't ask you to abandon your essence. He asked you to protect it. So stop being nice in the way others expect. Start being real in the way only you can be. It's time we get brutally honest. How much longer will you keep up this act of being the nice guy? How long will you keep giving up your energy, silencing your voice, surrendering your dignity, all just to uphold an image that was never truly yours, but one that others expect you to wear? Do you really believe that's virtue? That it's some kind of nobility? What it really is a prison, a psychological one, an emotional one, a cell dressed up with empty praise, where you're applauded not for who you are, but for being safe, for being predictable, for posing no threat. But let me tell you something most people probably haven't had the courage to say out loud. No one's coming to rescue you from this. No one's going to show up, thank you for the sacrifices you've made, hand you the respect you've earned, and say, it's time to rest now. That moment isn't coming, because for as long as you're willing to be taken advantage of, there will always be someone ready to take advantage. It's not cruelty, it's just reality. And reality doesn't bow to your good intentions. You can keep living as that ideal version of a good person that society has forced on you. Calm, patient, endlessly understanding, always available, always saying yes. But be ready for a life filled with frustration, resentment, and feeling invisible. Or you can wake up. You can choose right here and right now that your kindness is no longer going to be a leash around your neck, that from this point forward you'll act with intention, with presence, and with unwavering firmness. That you'll be the one to decide when to be generous and with whom. That you'll stop giving what you don't get in return. That you'll no longer live chasing approval like a dog pleading for scraps of affection. The truth is straightforward. The world gives respect to those who give it to themselves. And real freedom, it only begins the moment you stop asking for permission to exist. So let me ask you this. When was the last time you said no and didn't feel guilty about it? When was the last time you chose yourself first? When was the last time you did something purely for you without worrying about how others might? Respond? Drop it in the comments. I want to hear about the moment it hit you that being nice was the very thing tearing you apart. This conversation has to keep going because too many people are still trapped in the same prison, and you might be the spark that snaps someone else awake. And if this video made you question the way you live, the way you act, the way you see yourself, then the next one is a must-watch. Trust me, it matters. This journey, it's only just getting started.